Hi there, it's Mr. Clark. Welcome to lesson MED.3.4 on secular forms. So we've been looking at religious music because that was mostly what was written down. Secular or non-religious music, of course, occurred as well, but not a lot of it was recorded from this time period. We have a decent number of lyrics for early songs, but not a lot of musical notation to know what they sounded like. In terms of instrumental music, most early instrumental dances were improvised or passed down orally. There is a collection of estampes from around the 1200s, and the form of the estampe consists of repeated lines that have different endings. Um, by which I mean you have a line of music, say A, and then you have a first ending, then line of music A, and you have a second ending. Then you go to B, first ending, B, second ending, C, first ending, C, second ending, D, first ending, D, second ending. So you just repeat, you have different first and second endings. But each first ending, you'll notice, is the same. Each second ending, you will notice, is the same. So you really have A plus, I'll call it X, A, call it Y. B plus X, B plus Y, C plus X, C plus Y, D plus X, D plus Y. So that was the common form of the estampe. In terms of vocal forms, you have this collection of French poetic forms known as the formes fixées or fixed forms. These are three standard forms of French poetry from the 1200s that were set to music, both monophonic and polyphonic, by a variety of composers. So, a basic form for a verse that we see today in the 12-bar blues and things like that is A, B. Here's a piece of music. I'm gonna repeat the same notes, and then I'm gonna have something different. Dum, bum. That was a terrible verse, but it's the right form. Where you have something, you repeat the same thing musically, probably change the text, and then something different to end it off. And this is known as bar form. And all three of the forms we say will have this form of verse, where every time it comes back, the text changes. But there's also a refrain where every time it comes back, the text stays the same. So for the ballade, you have your A-A-B verse, and then you have a refrain. Then you have your A-B verse where the text changes, and the refrain where the text stays the same. You might have a refrain at the beginning, you might not, depends on the piece. So that's the ballade. Virelai is very similar to the ballade, but you have your verse, and then you take this music and you use the same music for the refrain. So we're going to make it capital because refrain text repeats every time it comes back, but it uses the same music as this second part of the verse, or third part of the verse, however you want to think about it. The virelai almost always does begin with a refrain. It could just be this. You could continue it if you wanted to, ad libitum, but you just really need 5 verses, or 5 lines. The rondo is the most complicated. So it takes its AAB bar form, and it splits it up. It sticks part of the refrain in the middle. You have a refrain at the beginning, you have a refrain at the end. So this is a pretty complicated 8-line form with a lot of repetition. So capital letters means that the text repeats. So you have, here's A text, here's B text. Then you have your verse, part 1. Then you have, here's A text. Obviously, this is just a placeholder. You'd put in whatever the A text actually is. Then you have verse part 2, or 1A, however you want to think about it. It's the same music. Verse part 3, and then here's A text, and here's B text. And every time there's an A, it's the same music. Every time there's a B, it's the same B music. So if my A music is going up and my B music is going down, my absolutely terrible rondo would sound like this. Here's A text, here's B text, Verse part 1 is A music, so it's going up. Here's A text. Verse part 2, now it's B music, so it's going down. Verse part 3, here's A text. Here's B text. Terrible rondo, but accurate in terms of form. So there are some musical examples that you can take a look at. But those are the three forms fixed. So take a look at those, and I will see you next